Commander Sarah Chun was drinking her third cup of coffee when the emergency alert screamed across every communication device in the Solar Defense Network. The harsh red lights that flooded the command center made her dark eyes narrow as she set down her mug with steady hands. "What's the situation?" she asked, her voice carrying the calm authority that had earned her respect among both human and alien allies throughout the galaxy. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers danced across his holographic display, pulling up streams of data that made his face go pale. "Ma'am, we're receiving a distress signal from the Kepler 442 system. It's not one of ours." Sarah moved to stand behind him, studying the scrolling alien script that appeared on the main screen. The translation software worked quickly, converting the desperate message into readable text. What she read made her stomach drop. "By the void," she whispered. "They're asking for help." The message was from the Zephyrians, a peaceful species known throughout the galaxy for their advanced medical technology and philosophical wisdom. They were herbivores who had never known war, never developed weapons beyond simple tools. Their entire civilization was built around healing and growth. "The Korthic invasion fleet has entered our system," the translated message read. "Our defenses are failing. Millions of civilians are trapped on our homeworld. We cannot fight. We do not know how to fight. Please, anyone who receives this message, we are dying. Our children are dying. Help us." Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up at Sarah with wide eyes. "Commander, the nearest Galactic Council forces are weeks away. Even if they left right now, they wouldn't arrive in time." Sarah studied the tactical display that showed the Zephyrian system. The Korthak were known throughout the galaxy as ruthless predators. They consumed other species, literally and culturally. They took worlds not just for resources, but for sport. The peaceful Zephyrians would be like sheep before wolves. "How far are we from their system?" Sarah asked. 48 hours at maximum burn with our fastest ships," Rodriguez replied. "But Commander, we only have 3 vessels in range. The destroyer Defiant, the cruiser New Tokyo, and the assault ship Montana. Against a Korthic invasion fleet, that's suicide," finished Captain Williams, who had just entered the command center. The grizzled veteran's mechanical arm whirred softly as he saluted. "Begging your pardon, ma'am, but the Korthic travel in packs of 50 ships or more. 3 human vessels against those odds." Sarah turned to face the main screen, where the Zephyrian distress call continued to play. She could hear the fear in the alien voices, even through the mechanical translation. These beings had never hurt anyone. They had shared their medical advances freely with any species that asked. They had helped humanity cure 3 different plagues that had threatened Earth colonies. "Pull up the crew rosters for all 3 ships," she commanded. "I want to know exactly what we're working with." Rodriguez's fingers flew over his controls. "The Defiant has a crew of 85, Captain Jackson commanding. They've got enhanced plasma cannons and the new shield generators. The New Tokyo carries 120 crew under Captain Yamamoto, armed with kinetic accelerators and torpedo arrays. The Montana." He paused. "The Montana has 300 crew, Captain Morrison commanding. They're carrying a full Marine battalion." Captain Williams shook his head. "Commander, I understand the desire to help, but sending 3 ships against a Korthic fleet is sending those crews to their deaths. The Galactic Council has procedures for this. We should file a formal request and watch an entire civilization get eaten alive while we fill out paperwork." Sarah's voice was sharp enough to cut steel. She had seen what the Korthic left behind on the worlds they conquered. Empty cities. Stripped bones. Nothing but silence where millions once lived. She walked to the communication console and opened a channel to the 3 ships. "Captain Jackson, Captain Yamamoto, Captain Morrison. This is Commander Chun. I'm sending you tactical data on an emergency situation. Review it and report to Conference Room Alpha in 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, the 3 captains sat around the briefing table, their faces grim as they studied the intelligence reports. Captain Jackson, a thin woman with prematurely gray hair, spoke first. "Ma'am, I've run the numbers 3 different ways. Even if we catch them completely by surprise, our odds of success are approximately 15%. Captain Yamato, whose family had served in Earth's military for 5 generations, nodded slowly. The Korthik ships are individually more powerful than ours. They have better armor, stronger weapons. In a straight fight, any one of their vessels could destroy any one of ours. Captain Morrison, the youngest of the 3, but carrying scars from a dozen battles, leaned back in his chair. So we don't fight them straight. Sarah looked at him with interest. Explain. The Korthik think like predators, Morrison said. They hunt in packs, they rely on overwhelming force, and they expect their prey to either run or die quickly. They've never fought humans before. Captain Jackson frowned. What's your point? Morrison stood and moved to the tactical display, pointing at the Zephyrian system. Humans don't think like prey. We think like something much more dangerous. We think like survivors. And we've been survivors on a death world for millions of years. Sarah felt a cold smile touch her lips. Go on. The Korthik will be expecting to face Zephyrian ships, which are basically flying hospitals. They're not expecting to encounter weapons designed by a species that evolved by killing everything that tried to eat us. They're not expecting humans. Captain Yamato studied the display. Hit and run tactics? Use our smaller size and speed? More than that, Morrison replied. We use everything they don't understand about humans. Our willingness to take insane risks. Our ability to function in situations that would break other species. Our talent for turning any piece of technology into a weapon. Sarah looked around the table. Gentlemen, lady, I won't lie to you. This mission has a very high probability of ending badly for all of us. But if we don't try, an entire species dies. And they die because no one was willing to stand up to bullies. Captain Jackson was quiet for a long moment. My crew signed up to protect people. All people, not just humans. Captain Yamato nodded. My grandmother always said that a warrior's honor is measured not by the enemies he defeats, but by the innocents he protects. Captain Morrison grinned. And it was the expression of a predator who had just caught the scent of prey. Besides, ma'am, when's the last time humans backed down from a fight just because the odds were bad? Sarah stood. Then we're doing this. Captains, prepare your crews for immediate departure. We leave in 4 hours. And gentlemen, lady, she looked each of them in the eye, remember that we're not just representing humanity out there. We're representing the idea that someone will answer when the innocent call for help. As the captains filed out to prepare their ships, Sarah remained behind, staring at the tactical display. Lieutenant Rodriguez approached her carefully. Commander, are you sure about this? The Galactic Council is going to have strong opinions about humans taking military action without authorization. Sarah's smile was cold as space. Rodriguez, the Galactic Council has spent the last 50 years telling everyone that humans are too violent, too aggressive, too dangerous to be trusted with military operations. They've kept us on the edges of their civilized galaxy because they're afraid of what we might do. She turned to face him, her eyes hard as diamonds. Well, they're about to find out exactly what humans do when someone threatens the innocent. And I think they're going to be very surprised by the results. Rodriguez swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Signal the fleet to begin preparation. And send a message to the Zephyrians. Tell them help is coming. Tell them Earth remembers its friends. Sarah walked toward the exit, then paused. And Rodriguez? Make sure our ships are loaded with every piece of medical equipment we can carry. When this is over, we're going to have a lot of people to help heal. 4 hours later, 3 human ships accelerated out of the solar system at speeds that would have been considered reckless by any other species. Behind them, they left the safety of known space and headed toward a battle that would either save a civilization or add 3 more ships to the growing list of human military casualties. But as the ships reached the edge of the system and engaged their faster-than-light drives, something interesting happened. Word of their mission began to spread through the human colonies. And across dozens of worlds, other human commanders began to look at their own ship rosters and calculate, travel times to the Kepler 442 system. The Zephyrians had asked for help. They might have been surprised by exactly what kind of help was coming, but they were about to learn something that the rest of the galaxy was still figuring out. When humans decide to protect something, they don't do it halfway. The three ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them the hopes of an entire species and the fury of humanity awakened to righteous purpose. The Korthic invasion fleet was about to encounter something they had never faced before. Humans with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for, and somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, Commander Sarah Chun sat in her command chair aboard the Defiant and planned a war. The Zephyrian system burned. From her position on the bridge of the Defiant, Commander Sarah Chun watched the tactical display with growing rage. 47 Korthak ships moved through the system like a plague of locusts. 3 Zephyrian orbital habitats had already gone dark, their life signs simply ending as the Predator stripped them clean. The beautiful blue-green homeworld of Zephyr Prime was partially obscured by smoke from burning cities. "Jesus," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had insisted on joining the mission despite Sarah's protests. "How many did they kill already?" Captain Jackson's voice came through the cum from her ship's bridge. "Sensors show approximately 2 million Zephyrian life signs remaining on the planet's surface, down from 12 million when the attack began." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. The Korthak weren't just conquering, they were feeding. Their massive bioships converted organic matter directly into energy and raw materials. Every Zephyrian they captured became fuel for their continued expansion across the galaxy. Korthak vessel signatures indicate this is a major hunting fleet, reported Captain Yamoto. From the New Tokyo, 17 heavy bioships, each capable of planetary bombardment. 23 assault vessels designed for ground operations. 7 support craft. Captain Morrison's voice carried a grim humor over the communication channel. "Well, at least we're outnumbered by professionals." Sarah studied the enemy formation. The Korthak ships moved with the coordination of a pack, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated their emotional states. Right now, those patterns showed satisfaction and hunger. They thought they were safe, thought this was just another easy meal. They had never encountered humans before. "All ships maintain radio silence and passive sensors only," Sarah commanded. "We need to get closer before they detect us." The 3 human vessels crept through the asteroid field at the edge of the system, using the natural cover to mask their approach. Human stealth technology was based on lessons learned from Earth's deadliest predators, sharks, spiders, and other creatures that struck from ambush. "Commander," Rodriguez said quietly, "the Zephyrians are trying to evacuate civilians to their underground cities, but the Korthak are using some kind of sonic weapon to collapse the tunnels." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Zephyrians had built their civilization around peace and growth. Their emergency shelters were designed to protect against natural disasters, not against an enemy that viewed them as food. "Range to nearest Korthak vessel?" she asked. 12,000 kilometers and closing, came Jackson's reply. That was close enough to study the enemy in detail. The Korthak bioships were truly alien living creatures as much as vessels, with hulls that rippled like skin and weapon ports that opened like mouths. They were beautiful in the way that apex predators were beautiful, perfectly evolved for hunting and killing. Sarah had spent her entire career fighting other humans. Civil wars, colonial disputes, pirate raids. She understood human tactics, human psychology, human weaknesses. But these creatures were something else entirely. Rodriguez analyzed their movement patterns. "Look for anything that tells us how they think." For 20 minutes, they watched the alien fleet strip mine a civilization. The Korthak moved in precise formations, with smaller ships herding Zephyrian evacuation vessels toward the larger bioships. It was efficient, coordinated, and utterly merciless. "I think I see it," Rodriguez said finally. "They're pack hunters like wolves. The smaller ships are acting as chasers, driving prey toward the larger ships that do the actual killing. And look at this," he highlighted a section of the display. "They're taking turns." Each bioship gets a certain amount of time to feed before rotating out. Sarah nodded slowly. They hunt like Earth predators, but they think like a civilized species. They have rules, protocols, social hierarchies. She looked around the bridge. That gives us an advantage. How so, ma'am? Asked Ensign Park, the youngest member of her crew. Sarah's smile was cold as winter. Because humans broke the rules of civilization a long time ago. We're the species that looked at the natural order of predator and prey and decided we belonged at the top, no matter what evolution intended. She activated the communication channel to the other ships. All captains, this is Chun. We're going to hit them fast and hard, but not the way they're expecting. Jackson, I want you to target their smallest ships first. Yamato, you take the medium vessels? Morrison, your job is to get those Marines to the planet's surface. Ma'am, Captain Jackson replied. Conventional wisdom says we should target the largest threats first. Conventional wisdom gets you killed when you're fighting something that evolved for this, Sarah replied. We're going to attack their pack structure. Kill the chasers first, disrupt their coordination, make them angry. Captain Morrison's voice carried approval. I see. Make them mad enough to abandon their protocols and come after us individually. Exactly. Rodriguez, signal the Zephyrians. Tell them to prepare for immediate evacuation assistance. And tell them that no matter what they see in the next few hours, humanity keeps its promises. Sarah took a deep breath. 3 ships against 47. By any rational measure, this was suicide. But rationality was a luxury that humans had given up long ago when they decided to climb down from the trees and challenge every apex predator on Earth. All ships, weapons hot. Target the Korthic ships designated Alpha through Delta. Fire on my mark. Sarah paused, thinking of the millions of Zephyrians who had already died, of the children hiding in collapsed tunnels, of the peaceful civilization being devoured by monsters. Mark. Space erupted with fire. The human ships revealed themselves in a storm of plasma cannons, kinetic accelerators, and torpedo spreads. The first 4 Korthak vessels simply ceased to exist, their organic hulls unable to withstand the concentrated firepower designed by a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing. The remaining Korthak fleet reacted with confusion and rage. The bioluminescent patterns on their hulls shifted to angry reds and warning yellows as they turned toward this unexpected threat. Direct hits on all targets, reported Jackson. Enemy formation is breaking up? Good, Sarah replied. Now we run. The 3 human ships accelerated away from the Korthak fleet, using their superior engines to stay just ahead of the pursuing bioships. But this wasn't a retreat, it was a hunting technique as old as humanity itself. Rodriguez, are they following us? Yes, ma'am. Looks like about half their fleet is in pursuit. The larger bioships are slower, but they're gaining. Perfect. Sarah activated the ship's intercom. All hands, this is the commander. Prepare for combat maneuvers. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for every species in this galaxy that thinks civilization means safety. The chase continued for an hour, with the human ships leading their pursuers deeper into the asteroid field. The Korthak were powerful, but their bioships were designed for hunting in open space, not for navigating complex terrain. Now, Sarah commanded. The 3 human ships split apart and executed a maneuver that would have been impossible for most species, a synchronized 3-dimensional ambush that used the asteroids as cover and concealment. The Korthak found themselves trapped in a crossfire, their organic hulls taking damage from multiple directions, while human-designed weapons exploited weaknesses that evolution had never prepared them for. Their hulls are regenerating, warned Captain Yamato. These things can heal damage in real time. And we hit them faster than they can heal, Sarah replied. All ships, continuous fire. Don't give them time to recover. The battle turned into something that resembled the ancient warfare of Earth's oceans, fast, brutal, and decided by whoever could adapt quickest to changing circumstances. The humans had spent their entire evolution learning to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. The Korthik had spent theirs learning to hunt prey that couldn't fight back. When the ammunition smoke cleared, 16 Korthak vessels drifted as lifeless hulks among the asteroids. "Holy hell," breathed Captain Morrison. "We actually did it." But Sarah was already looking at the tactical display, where the remaining Korthak ships were regrouping near Zephyr Prime. "We won the first round. But there are still 31 ships down there, and they're angry now. They're going to take it out on the civilians." "What's our next move?" asked Captain Jackson. Sarah studied the display for a long moment. The smart tactical decision would be to withdraw, call for reinforcements, wait for the Galactic Council to assemble a proper fleet. But by then, there wouldn't be any Zephyrians left to save. "We're going to do something stupid," she said finally. "How stupid?" asked Captain Morrison. Though his tone suggested he already approved, Sarah's smile was the expression of humanity. At its most dangerous, a species that had looked at impossible odds and decided to make them somebody else's problem. "We're going to assault a fortified position with inferior numbers, no support and no backup plan." "Ah," said Captain Yamato with satisfaction. "A traditional human military operation." The 3 battered human ships turned toward Zephyr Prime, where an entire species waited to learn whether the galaxy contained anyone willing to bleed for strangers. Behind them, the wreckage of 16 bioships drifted among the asteroids, the first Korthak vessels ever. Destroyed by human weapons the Korthak had spent. The surface of Zephyr Prime looked like a nightmare from the observation deck of the Montana. Marine Colonel Marcus Webb watched through enhanced optics as Korthak ground forces moved through the burning remains of what had once been the most beautiful cities in this sector of the galaxy. The Zephyrians were artists by nature. Their architecture flowed like music made solid. Old graceful curves and living materials that grew rather than being built. Now it was all smoke and rubble. "Colonel," said Sergeant Major Patricia Santos, joining him at the viewport, "the intel package from the fleet is ready for your review." Webb nodded, not taking his eyes off the devastation below. Santos had served with him for 8 years, through 3 different colonial conflicts. She knew when her commander was calculating the human cost of the mission they were about to attempt. "How many Zephyrians are left down there?" he asked. "Approximately 400,000 in the underground shelters. Another 100,000 scattered in remote settlements. The Korthak are systematically hunting them down." Webb finally turned away from the viewport. At 42, he was young for a colonel, but his weathered face carried the weight of every soldier he'd ever led into combat. "And we're supposed to save them with 300 Marines against an entire planetary occupation force." Santos smiled grimly. "Sir, when has the Corps ever been given a fair fight?" Webb laughed despite the situation. It was true human Marines had spent 3 centuries specializing in impossible missions. "Brief me on the enemy ground forces." They moved to the tactical center, where holographic displays showed the Korthak deployment across Zephyr Prime. The alien forces were both impressive and terrifying, massive biomechanical warriors that stood 3 meters tall, armed with weapons that literally grew from their bodies. "Current count shows approximately 50,000 Korthak ground troops," Santos reported. "They're using a standard predator deployment, surround prey concentrations, then systematically eliminate resistance." "Weaknesses?" "They hunt like pack animals. Excellent coordination within their immediate groups, but they don't adapt well to unexpected tactics. Their weapons are integrated into their biology, which means they can't be easily modified for different situations." Webb studied the displays. The Korthak were doing exactly what successful predators always did, using overwhelming force and proven tactics to eliminate their prey efficiently. It was a strategy that had worked for millions of years on countless worlds. Unfortunately for them, they had never encountered human Marines. "Santos, signal the fleet. Tell Commander Chung we're ready for deployment." 20 minutes later, Webb stood in the drop bay of the Montana, surrounded by 300 of the most dangerous humans in the galaxy. They wore the powered armor that had made human infantry legendary, not for its defensive capabilities, but for how it amplified the natural aggression and adaptability that had made humans the premier ground fighters in known space. "Listen up," Webb called out over the intercom. "Today we're writing a new chapter in the Corps' manual. We're fighting an enemy that's bigger than us, stronger than us, and has us outnumbered 160 to 1. The Marines responded with enthusiasm rather than fear. These were volunteers who had specifically requested assignment to the most dangerous postings humanity could offer. The phrase routine deployment wasn't in their vocabulary. But, Webb continued, they've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when someone threatens people we've decided to protect. And they're about to learn why the rest of the galaxy thinks we're crazy." Sergeant Major Santos activated the tactical display. "First priority is evacuation support. We establish secure perimeters around the Zephyrian shelters and hold them while Commander Chien's ships provide extraction. Second priority is disrupting Korthek command structure. We identify their leadership elements and eliminate them." Private Johnson, barely 19 but already a veteran of 2 combat deployments, raised her hand. "Ma'am, what if the Korthek don't break when we hit their leaders?" Santos's smile was pure predator. "Then we move to priority 3. We hunt them down one by one until they remember what fear feels like." The dropships launched in a storm of fire and fury. Human atmospheric craft were designed with one principle in mind: get troops to the ground fast enough to maintain tactical surprise. They screamed through the Korthek defensive fire like falling meteors, their armor absorbing damage that would have destroyed most other species. Equipment. Webb's dropship slammed into the ground 3 kilometers from the largest Zephyrian shelter, and the Marines poured out ready for immediate combat. The first Korthek patrol they encountered learned something that would have shocked any xenobiologist in the galaxy. Humans were faster. The alien warriors were built like living tanks, with organic armor that could withstand most small arms fire. But their size made them slow, and their pack-hunting instincts made them predictable. The Marines moved like ghosts, using cover and concealment to close to point-blank range before opening fire with weapons designed to penetrate the heaviest armor. "First contact successful," Webb reported to Santos. "Enemy patrol eliminated. No friendly casualties." Across the battlefield, similar reports came in from the other squads. The Korthek had never faced an opponent that combined human tactical flexibility with weapons specifically designed to kill large, armored targets. Their hunting techniques, perfected over millions of years, were useless against prey that fought back with coordinated fire and movement. "Colonel," came a transmission from Lieutenant Patterson, "we've reached Shelter Alpha 7. The Zephyrians are alive, but they're terrified. They keep asking if we're really here to help them." Webb felt his jaw tighten. The peaceful Zephyrians had no experience with war, no understanding of what it meant to fight for survival. To them, the arrival of heavily armed humans probably looked like a second invasion. "Tell them we keep our promises," he replied. "And tell them to stay down while we work." The next 6 hours turned the surface of Zephyr Prime into a demonstration of human military doctrine at its most effective. The Marines moved in small teams, using superior mobility and firepower to strike Korthek positions and withdraw before the aliens could organize effective counterattacks. The Korthek, meanwhile, grew increasingly frustrated. Their prey was supposed to cower and die, not fight back with weapons that could punch through bio-armor at ranges their own weapons couldn't match. They had never encountered an enemy that seemed to actually enjoy the challenge of being outnumbered. "Colonel," Santos called over the com, "we've got a problem. Korthek Command is adapting faster than expected. They're starting to coordinate their responses." Webb looked at his tactical display, where Korthek forces were beginning to move in larger formations, surrounding areas where Marines had been active. The aliens were learning, applying their natural pack-hunting intelligence to the problem of humans who refused to act like prey. "Time to switch tactics," he decided. "All units, execute Omega Protocol." Omega Protocol was something the Marines had developed during the Centauri Rebellion, a coordinated assault designed to break enemy morale by demonstrating that humans were willing, to take risks that no sane species would consider acceptable. Instead of withdrawing from the increasingly coordinated Korthik response, the Marines charged 300 humans in powered armor, launched simultaneous attacks on 50 different Korthik positions simultaneously. They came out of concealment like ancient warriors, firing as they advanced, using their armor's enhanced strength to literally climb over obstacles that should have provided the aliens with defensive advantages. The Korthik discovered something that every enemy of humanity had eventually learned. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to make their enemies afraid. "Santos, we've broken through to the main shelter complex," reported Captain Rodriguez from Alpha Company. "Estimate 12,000 Zephyrian civilians ready for evacuation." "Copy that," Santos replied. "Fleet is standing by for extraction." Above the battlefield, Commander Chun's ships were fighting their own desperate battle against the remaining Korthik fleet. The aliens had abandoned their pack-hunting formation in favor of a direct assault on the human vessels, their bioluminescent hulls blazing with rage-driven patterns that spoke of a species encountering something completely outside their understanding of how the universe worked. "Commander," came Captain Morrison's voice over the comm, "the Korthik are starting to withdraw their ground forces to the ships. I think they've decided this isn't worth the cost." Chun looked at her tactical display, where Korthik bioships were indeed beginning to recall their forces. The aliens were learning what every aggressor species eventually discovered about humans. They were willing to pay prices that made victory too expensive to pursue. "Negative," she replied. "We don't let them leave to try this somewhere else. We end this here." What happened next would become required study material in every military academy in human space. 3 damaged human ships, carrying 300 Marines and whatever Zephyrian civilians they could rescue, deliberately positioned themselves between a Korthik fleet and the edge of the system. The aliens could leave, but they would have to go through humanity to do it. The final battle lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, the Korthik expedition fleet